What content should I produce? Isn't this a perpetual question among people wanting to create new content? Also, this is not just about the love of creating new content, but also balancing it with your money making goals. Bob Dunn has produced a lot of content over the years in the form of written, video, and audio podcasts. Here, he is here to share his content journey and actionable tips for better content creations. So let's welcome Bob on the show and get started. Hi, Bob. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me on.
You are welcome. So before we get on with the engrossing topic of content creation, why don't you give a quick introduction about your online life?
Well, it started actually my online life started years ago, probably when online started, and just kind of fast forward to 2007 is when I started dabbling with WordPress, and during the next 3 years, I got into it more and more. So the last almost decade has been where I really got into it. Did coaching, training, design, you name it. I think I've done it. Everything but development. That's the only thing I really haven't done and I have no desire to. And right now I'm at the point where I pretty much label myself as a content creator, uh, content marketer. I don't know what the label is, but I blog and podcast a lot is
Okay,
really
cool.
it in a nutshell.
Yep, you've got so many years behind you in terms of content creation. So that is what we're going to talk about, considering the experience you have and how the content landscape changes every few years. Now, producing content is a journey, especially when you're doing it on your own websites. Now, since you've been doing it for a long time, how did your journey with content start?
Actually, I would say it started back when I discovered WordPress, or actually dove into WordPress, because I did it for two reasons. One is to find a easier way, and this was back in around 2007, to do websites for clients. Secondly, it was, this blogging is intriguing, and I like the idea of creating content and sending people to my site rather than them just going and look at my online brochure. So it was like this makes sense. So I started dabbling in blogging, and by around 2010 is when I just really started getting into the content. And the content was actually a arm of I was doing a lot of workshops and training, and I was starting to do more of that stuff. So it just came natural to start producing more and more content. And it was obvious. It was like, okay, I'm producing more content. People are becoming more interested in my site. No brainer, and I enjoyed doing it.
And over the period of so many years, have you just written content for your own web properties, or you've written it for other websites or content houses as well?
I haven't done a ton because my wife and I, we basically have run our own business prior to Bob WP brand. We ran a marketing company for about 17, 18 years. So I've always written content. I mean, except for clients, I've always written content for myself. I do a few guest posts I've done here and there, but I've not nearly done as much as most people do. And I was just talking to somebody about backlinking and how I built my brand. And I didn't do it in that way as far as, I just got the word out, got talked to people, had interviews, stuff like that, but didn't do a lot of content on other sites.
Okay, so what are few major changes that you've noticed on how you approach content writing today as compared to maybe 5 years back or 10 years back?
I think it's that constant. There's a couple of things. Of course, there's SEO, that's changing. So you always have to have that, how do you create content? A lot of things get thrown out there. And I think it's almost trend wise, long versus short form, storytelling. It's all stuff I've done. I maybe did it before as a trend. I've done it some afterwards. And I see all those things changing. I think the medium, having to kind of take your content and expand it out in other mediums is what I've seen the most in the last 5 years. And that is probably one of the biggest things. And of course, the most immediate change, how I approach content, is Gutenberg. I'm not going to go down the Gutenberg hole, But when that came about, I learned to write content in the editor. That's what I did, and it became a habit for me. And maybe it's not the best habit, but it worked for me. So I'm in that editor every day for a few hours. And when Gutenberg happened, it was like, okay, now I've got to change. And it was a major change in how I approached writing, but it all worked out in the end.
So, am I talking to a Gutenberg fan?
I am. It took me, when it happened, I was like, I don't know. I'm pretty flexible, even in my older years. It's like I adapt because I'm in technology, so I learned to adapt. Once I got it down, I found there was a lot of different things with the workflow that made it easier for me. There were still things that drove me nuts. Hey, it's change, and I would, why I got to remember this is where that is now, but there was several things that outweighed that made it better. And now I'm at the point with as much time as I spend in, it's like if I have to go back in the classic editor, I'm almost stumped now. I've got that Gutenberg flow down.
Okay, now let's talk about something very classic and something very common, which is what to write about. Now, topic selection is the biggest stumbling block, and a lot of people get stuck at this and produce no content at all because they cannot decide what to write about. So, any tips for quickly making the topic selection and get on with the actual writing? How does Bob do it?
I discovered I don't like to say, go with what you're passionate about, because passionate is one of those words that I don't know. I feel it's a little overrated, because sometimes I think we confuse passion with what our interest is, if there's some real, or where our knowledge is. And I think, it's really as simple as write what you know. I mean, that's kind of I don't want to say a lame tip, but it's really boils down to that. Because if you start trying and then take it from there, because how you grow your audience, how you grow your brand, where that direction goes from there. But in the beginning, take what interests you, what makes it, what you get up in the morning to do, what do you do? And maybe that content, you'll think two things. You'll think one is, oh, everybody else is doing it. Well, everybody's always learning new stuff. There's new generations. You have a different approach. You have a different voice. Contribute. And don't think that it's a boring topic. Think of, there's people that want to hear stuff. And maybe it's not the largest audience in the world you're going to end up with, but really write about what you know. Or if you want to learn something new, right through that process, and that becomes something else, So it's easier said than done, because often it's, I know this, now I got to sit down and write. It's like, that's where the stumbling block comes.
Yeah, because, when we are talking about the passion thing or the topics that are closer to heart, that is sort of equal to no money making, vis-a-vis topics that are viral in the ecosystem, aka money making topics. So how does one strike a balance between such passion, no money making, versus the viral money making topics while writing the content? How do you do that?
I have struggled with that, because there's sometimes I think of a great post and I think this just doesn't fit my audience. What they're going to say, what is he talking about this for now? This is, so I've learned that, okay, if I create these sites and I have a certain readership, and if that readership is growing, okay, I'm going to stick to that topic. Now, that doesn't mean everybody has to do that. If you find, if it's something that's just, it's got to fit into what your audience is expecting, at least meet their expectations. Myself, I just started, I broke my site into 4 different sites, and I have this site called bobwpmedia.com. It's kind of a landing page, basically, with all my other sites on it. But I've decided that's my blog for everything else that doesn't fit anywhere else. So if because sometimes I get that urge. It's like, oh, I wanted to write about women in WordPress and e-commerce space recently. So that's where I wrote about that, because it just didn't fit the audience from my other blogs. So I say, find, if if there is that piece that's your heart, your passion, start a blog on that. It's going to be, it's not the moneymaker. So if 10 people come and read it, you got 10 people that go, great. Just start a personal blog. Don't get people too mixed up in the content that they're interested in and the niche you're trying to build on certain sites.
Yeah, it's very important. And the splitting of content among different domains, I think it's good from SEO point of view as well, because Google also want clarity about what your site is all about. If you throw in content of every other topic, I think those days are gone. I think when the internet was growing, then we had this kind of thing, like one website put all kind of content in it and Google will love it. But those days are way way past here then. So now you split into a few different brands and you write on specific topics on those specific sites. So how do you create your checklist, or the list of topics that you're gonna write in future? Like, do you have some sources of inspiration to find the topics or the questions that you're gonna answer in the form of blog post or maybe as a podcast or video?
I think we're at a stage now where there's a ton of resources or opportunities out there for us. I mean, there's social. I look at what people are talking about. I follow certain people, and yeah, I can pick up topics all the time. I can pick up topics from comments on my blog. I can pick up topics within comments on Facebook posts. I mean, there's just constantly stuff like that. So I'm always looking and listening. And I try to, I make a quick note of it. It's not like, okay, I'm going to remember that one, and that's not going to happen, later on. What was it? That person said something really great. I didn't write it down, or I didn't put it somewhere, or voice recorded. And the other part of that is I'm a huge, huge proponent of repurposing content. And that's where I probably get the most of my ideas. As I'm writing something, and as I'm going through that, I'm thinking, wow, I've just had 3 other posts that I can elaborate from this post and do the interlinking and make all that good stuff happen. Or I'm looking at, and I'm sure you do the same thing. You've got these videos, you got podcasts.
Yep.
How much content can you and ideas you get from that? I've sat and talked with somebody on a podcast and thought, wow, I just thought of an idea for a post. So my problem is not, I have too many ideas. I have a whiteboard. I have Evernote. I have all these things filled with ideas. And so whenever I'm ready to write a post or plan on writing a post, it's like I've got a list to go to. So it's just keeping your ears and eyes open and being very flexible, and especially that repurposing.
Okay, now you have topics that you want to write about. And how do you get about actual writing the article or a content? Like, do you follow any specific methodology or a routine?
Oh man, I wish I had some wonderful words of wisdom to give everyone here. I'm a very erratic and a random person. If I'm writing about a plugin, I write about a lot of WooCommerce plugins. I like to sit down. I mean, I just plan it. I get my documentation, all the resources I need. I sit down and write it. But unfortunately, my method is sometimes it's spur writing. It's really easy for me to be in the middle of a not a podcast, I should say, writing some content and say, oh, I got to do something else real quick, which is dangerous for a lot of people. I can do that. Also, one of the things is I don't get bogged down. If I get into a post and something just isn't clicking or something, I just put it aside. I say, okay, you're going to the little place to rest for a while. I'll revisit you and hopefully nurture you. But till then, you're a block. Unless it's something I have to get out, I'll have to work my way through it. Otherwise, I set it aside. So I don't have one method. I just kind of have a editorial calendar that I follow. So that's like gold mine to me, to know what I'm doing and be able to move things around and know what process or at what stage everything is in.
And are you a fan of writing long form content or short form content?
I used to be, I probably, the majority of my posts, or the majority of my posts that do really well, are fairly long form.
Mm-hmm.
I find that, and even when I used to teach blogging, that it was Okay, I probably personally I like long form, but I write as much as the topic will let me write. I'm not going to force it into one or the other. I'm going to massage that particular length of content
Mhm.
around the topic. So it's I do both actually. I'm good with both, and I don't set a rule that this has to be long, this has to be short.
And here, long form would mean more than 1,000 words, 2,000 words.
Yeah, for me it's 1,000. Sometimes it's up to. I've done posts as long as much as 3,000 words, which are kind of insanity posts. I wonder why did I do this, but some of them have actually worked. So it's and then of course I have my wife editing, so sometimes she makes my long form posts into not so long form posts. So
You've been writing a lot of extra stuff. Needs to go out, right?
yeah, yeah, I'm getting better at it though.
Okay, so while writing, which are few of your favorite tools that helps you write better content? Obviously, Gutenberg is your latest, favorite one. Any other?
Yeah. It's there's not the actual process of writing. I don't have a lot of tools. Unfortunately, I don't have to, like use spell checks and stuff because my wife is a professional writer and has been for a long time.
So you
So,
have in-house Grammarly.
yeah, I do. And I've gotten better. And what I think is I do have, like I said, I have a editorial calendar, and I also have checklists and things just to make the process a little bit better, the writing process. But I I always tell people when they say, what tools will help me write better, and I'm saying there's not necessarily a tool, just do it, do it, do it, and keep doing it. It's like anything, the more you write, the better you will get at it. And you'll find those little tools that will help you along the way, and they're great. And there's a lot of them that, some people can't live without. But as far as just helping you with write better content, I think it's practice. Just do it and keep doing it and don't get frustrated.
Okay, let's talk about podcasting now. You've been podcasting for a long time, even when podcasting was very new, I guess. And audio content forms big, a content block for you for on your website. So, how does podcasting content or content created via audio only compares with the written content? What is the ROI or your passion to create it, or the response, how it gets consumed by your, visitors?
I think it's just more for me personally. I like it because of the interaction through interviews such as this. I'm not the best at just talking myself on a podcast. In fact, it can get rather boring with just me. So I like that interaction, which I can't get in writing content. I mean, you can have an interview, in a post, but it's not the same. So that's huge. And also, it's just reaching another audience. I think that's what I got into. It's something you have to, of course, be comfortable with, but it does reach a different audience, and both of them, going back to that repurposing part, really play on each other. So you can do a lot of repurposing between the two, and that's where they're kind of alike minded, the two pieces of content, because you can do that. But it's really, for me, again, the interaction of talking to people versus just writing content. And two, it's the audience, an audience that is looking to listen rather than always read.
And which is more time consuming to produce?
Yeah.
Audio, text, or I think you've already also done few videos, right?
Yeah, I did. I did a lot of video tutorials in the past and stuff.
So which takes more time for you to produce?
Probably from practice, content is less. Video really takes me a long time because I do a lot of editing, and also podcasting, depending on what you do with your podcast.
Mhm.
Me, I do a lot of post and pre-production, and so for my workflow personally, since I don't have a lot of people that do that for me for my podcast, podcasting takes me longer because I have a lot of steps I go through.
Okay, now let's talk about the most juicy part of this interview, which is making money, right? Now, technically, one can make money from every piece of content, provided you have enough traffic. Now, this sounds very, easy on the paper, but on practical, real world, it just doesn't work like that. So, how does Bob monetize his written content? I know you don't have Google Ads, so that is out of the question. So, how do
Mhm.
you make money from your written content?
Yeah, and I don't have ads. I don't even really have that many banner ads, just because they never worked for me. Uh,
It doesn't work for
I,
anyone, actually.
yeah, it's like anymore. People just ignore those things. It really is the content itself. In the past, it was always, building the brand, driving people to the traffic. I mean, driving people to my site. Currently, it's a lot of affiliates, and affiliates by writing about products, and it's not products that I use. I can't use every product I write about. It's impossible. But knowing I trust them enough and trust the people that produce it, is writing about it, making it educational enough, showing people what they can do with this thing, and putting in one or two links, and not filling it, not getting overwhelmed with links, not writing apparently for the sake of an affiliate link. But that really is how, personally, I do a lot of monetization of my content, and that whole repurposing that plays into it as well. So it's yeah, it and it's something that you have to, it's some, unless you're a crazy affiliate marketer that can really get into a hardcore and you have 100 niche sites and you're just shoving it in people's faces, those guys make money. Me, it was a long process. It takes time to build up, because you have to start building up trust with your readers,
Yeah.
and they have to know that, okay, I'm learning something. Thank you, Bob. I'm clicking this link.
So affiliate marketing is the big source of, money making. So besides affiliate marketing,
Right.
what else do you use to make money from your written content? Is it like sponsored articles?
Yeah, I do sponsored posts, and it's interesting because sponsored posts is a very broad. I mean, people think of, paying and having a post. Here, can I pay you this much and you will publish my post? I don't do that kind of sponsored posts. I don't do sponsored links. I don't add links for money. What I do is I offer sponsored posts where I write a post, and it's not so much a review, it's more of a, this is what this particular product will do for you. So
Informational
it's,
kind of a post.
yeah, it's kind of like it's almost like a tutorial in a sense. And that's why I tell people that come to me, I said, I'm presenting this product to my readers. I'm telling them these are the features, this is what it does. They make the decision if it fits their, I'm not here to say, your product is wonderful in this part and it really sucks in this part. There's plenty of posts out there. That's not my style. My style has always been to help people and just show them what the tools are, let them make the decision.
And what about making money from your podcasting endeavors? How fruitful this has been so far?
When I started the WP e-commerce show over, God, it's been about 3.5 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I went for sponsorships immediately. And that was very, actually it worked. I was lucky, but I told myself I couldn't do it. Now my podcasts have been with and without sponsorships. Currently, I'm back to sponsorships. It's tough. I'll put it bluntly. It's tough to get sponsors. I mean, no matter how much somebody makes it sound easy, it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of variables in play there. And there's a lot of weird things going on with podcasts that can't always be tracked.
Yeah.
So there's that issue. My suggestion is, okay, that's, in a perfect world, you could just have, here, sponsor my podcast, money roll in, and I'm working that back up on my end. But I really feel the best money to be made in podcasting is that brand building, uh, being able to drive people to your podcast, learn about you, learn about whoever you have as guests. And then, as a side thing, yes, you have these products, you have these services, do that, building that trust through that podcast, and you providing them all this cool stuff. Then, start, and I'm sure you probably know this all too well, start funneling them to your own stuff that they can actually purchase,
Yep.
whether it's products or services. And that's where I think the real beauty of that ability to make money through podcasting that way. Sponsorships are great. If you can do it, I say go for it, but it is not the easiest thing in the world to do.
So you produced content, you monetized it. How do you promote your content? Like get fresh eyeballs to your content?
Fortunately, about 90% of my traffic is organic search. So I've been lucky. So that's where I've worked it over time. And can I tell you what the SEO secret I've done? No, I don't know what it is. I've done something right, obviously, along the way. So that's a lot. I do a lot. I do a lot on social, mostly on Twitter, because that's where I seem to get the best response versus Facebook. And it's just, through these other mediums, trying to drive people there through the podcasts. If I'm doing video, I've never really had a lot of success with YouTube. I'll be honest there. I don't know. It just never has really clicked with me or my audience, or I haven't clicked with the YouTube audience. I don't know what that is, but yeah, it's just getting it out through social, but I do get a lot of traffic through search.
You just mentioned that you have more SEO traffic, and I can tell you the SEO secret for you is the content, not the SEO plugin that you're using.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. And that's it. It takes a lot of time. And when I split up my site, I had some really interesting things going on with my organic search and watching those stats go up and down because I moved some content from one site to another site. So that was interesting.
Now, the next question is basically a question coming from my heart, because I always have this problem. Like, you have a topic that you want to write about it. And the next step is, should I write a post on it? Should I do a podcast episode, or should I do a video? So how do you decide, like, if you have a specific topic and you want to answer it via either of these three mediums, how do you decide which medium fits what?
That's a good question, because right now I'm probably, maybe it's more that I'm just content focused. So I just, write posts, and a lot of the stuff I do, it's natural to write about this plugin. I mean, I've tried to do video. I think it really becomes a personal thing, and I think you should go with what you're most comfortable with, and you're building the audience. That's where your real energy should be in. But then the beauty of it, and we've talked about it, and I keep saying it, is that repurposing, because I'm always thinking, if I'm doing this, can I somehow tie it into the podcast, or do I repurpose it into video? Or if I'm doing video, can I pull out content? And, some of the best posts I had from the way past was posts that combined video and content. They were a lot of work. That's why I probably didn't have a ton of them, but they were the ones that got the most interaction from people and the most traffic, because people were like, wow, I can read this, I can watch this video. If I forget something in the video, I can read this here and go back to it. So there's really no hard and fast rule, except because, again, of the nature of my site, I probably tend to go more towards writing the content, unless it calls for video, unless it calls for a podcast.
Okay, so someone listening to this episode and is confused what to write about, and once he's decided what to write about, how to make money from your written content, what advice would you give to that person?
Oh, man. I think, so how to make money from the content. I think the best route to always make money, unless you're doing an online store or something like that, is really to write content, to drive people there, to build that trust, it's kind of the same old blah, 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 but build that brand, write content that brings people to your site where you can funnel how you make money. I mean, you can't just write and not make money. I tell people, don't get in your head that, I'm going to just start writing and putting in affiliate links, I'm going to make all this money. Yeah, you can start doing that.
But you won't.
but still make that the strength in writing the content to drive people to what you want to do, as far as, you want them to buy this product, you want them to join your membership site, you want them to hire you as a web designer. That's where all paths got to lead.
Yeah, because when I started this podcast, a lot of people from my ecosystem did ask me this question, like, you started a podcast. Oh, you've got another way to make money. So how much money you've been making from the podcast? I said, well, it's a lot of zeros here, technically speaking, but obviously it does make you money, but indirectly, just like you mentioned, you funnel your audience and traffic to different things. It could be your product, it could be someone else's product. Again, it's all about connecting the dots here. And obviously podcasts I think 99.999 podcasts don't make money directly. They're all, some of them make money, which obviously is indirectly, like you make it, and probably I also make it. I actually, it's difficult to even calculate that, to be honest.
Exactly. Yeah. It's really, I mean, I used to, when I would do workshops on how to make money from your site, I always told them the best way to make money from your site is to funnel everything to what you're selling. That really is the best. And it's really the easiest way, because you're already selling something. Just move them towards it.
Yeah. And even if you're not selling, just funnel them to your email list or your Facebook group, or let them be a subscriber on your YouTube channel, or let them subscribe to your podcast. Just get those people into your ecosystem, because once you have people in ecosystem, you can always think of selling. But if you think of selling in the start without having people, you're bound to fail 100%.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yep. You gotta work it, and you just can't. Like you said, perfect world, cash would just start flowing in. You could put things on there, and people would start buying or clicking all your affiliate links. You know how that goes, don't we?
Clicking is one story, but converting is altogether different story. That's love story. This is hate story. So,
right, exactly.
So, okay, let's shift our gears and talk about your toolbox. So, which are your current 5 favorite tools that power your online business?
Well, Evernote is one of them, and the only reason is, again, by the nature of my business, I'm able to keep information. I'm able to bookmark information, because I'm always looking for those ideas and resources. So I'm doing that. Zencaster is my new favorite tool. It's what I'm using for my podcast now. I really like it. It's if you're doing only audio podcasts, it has some really cool editing tools in it, and it separate tracks, all that good stuff.
Try video. Yeah.
And if it's video, we're on Zoom. That's my other. I didn't list Zoom, but definitely Zoom is great. Then the other 3 are the tools, specifically plugins for my site. Social web suites, that's how I manage all my social media. Yoast SEO, I mentioned Yoast SEO because I've had Yoast SEO on my sites. It's just a tool. My content has, probably, I hope it takes the credit for most of the SEO I have, but it's always been there. It's always done its job. And another one I'm really enjoying lately is called Analytify. It's just one of the tools. There's other ones out there like Monster Insights and stuff, but it brings in my Google Analytics into my dashboard, and it really lets me see what's going on, especially on specific posts and pages. I can look at the visitors and where they're coming from for a specific post or page, and the bounce rates and all that stuff. And it makes it a little easier for me to understand, as much as I've dealt with Google Analytics over the years. And I was going to add a 6th one. Publish Press is my editorial calendar, and a great way to keep track of all my content, because I have all sorts of stuff going on.
And which is your recommended web hosting service?
Excuse me? Hosting service. Liquid Web is my partner right now. I kind of choose. I've had a few over the years. I choose one and I stick with it. Really enjoy them. And then on a side note, I use Castos, which is my podcast hosting partner.
Same here. Even I use Castos, and it works really well.
Yeah, great stuff.
Especially if you're a WordPress user, because it integrates directly into your dashboard, so you don't have to do anything fancy to work. So you're recommended. Do you use Page Builder? Because I know most of your sites use Genesis, and you generally use Genesis, widgets and stuff. So do you happen to use Page Builder as well?
This is interesting. I won't do too long on this, because Page Builder, when I was designing, Page Builders were in their infancy. I mean, my first Page Builder was Headway. I don't know if you were
Yep.
around
And
then. Yeah.
Headway was really headway in terms of what it offered. Like it was really a revolutionary product, but they
Yeah.
couldn't make money out of it. They lost their way.
Yeah, yeah, unfortunately. So I haven't used it a lot for client stuff. So I've used when I recommend, I always tell people, hey, there's a lot of good ones out there. You mentioned, several of them. I've used Beaver Builder for landing pages for my site when I've needed them. Speaking of Genesis, I mean, this isn't a bad thing, but I'm actually thinking of, God, I just did a change of theme, but I'm thinking of redesigning my three of my four sites using Beaver Builder and their themer, because I have some really specific things I want, and
Best. It would be a
I
best ever
think,
decision for you.
yeah, and I think, it's like I've used certain ones out of the box have been really easy for me, and that's been great. But Beaver Builder, I need certain things, and I've used Beaver Builder. That's the reason I'm going to use it, is because I'm comfortable with it, so I know it. So I'm going to probably take three of my sites and build them up with Beaver Builder, and we'll see how that goes.
When you put in Beaver Themer in the Beaver Builder mix, it's like you get all kind of freedom to do anything, because
Yeah.
with Themer you can design almost any part of your website. Like you can design your blog post, and you can make your two blog posts different. Like you can design a template for a specific blog post with specific category, and you can design a different looking blog. I actually did one design today for my normal blog post, because I post my podcasts also as a post and not as a podcast custom post type. So
Mm-hmm.
everything I post is a post in WordPress. So I actually
Mm-hmm.
use a themer to build different layout for the normal post and different layout for the podcast post, because podcast post
Mm.
has a sidebar where you stick in all the links for Spotify, iTunes, etc., etc. And normal posts are just like full width posts. Yeah, themer really
Yeah.
good. Awesome,
Yeah.
because it really gives you freedom to do anything without touching the code. Obviously you can mix little code here and then, but considering you're coming from Genesis background, you should be already comfortable with little bit of code play, because Genesis teaches you that.
Yeah, yeah, and I definitely want to stay away from as much code as possible. So that's, yeah.
Okay, any recommended email marketing service? Are
You
you
know, I use MailChimp. There's a lot of good stuff out there, but all I do is send out my, again, the nature of my business, I send out my post updates. That's all I really do. So I don't need, anything fancy. So I just use MailChimp. It's,
are you
nothing.
big into email marketing, or just use it?
I'm not these days. I used to be more with when I was doing services like training and
Uh,
design and stuff like that. But I'm not really into a lot of it now, because it doesn't really, because of my organic traffic, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I don't, there's and all the stuff that I do, it doesn't really have a place in it right now. And that could be another whole show, let me tell you. But it really is interesting, because I don't need a robust email strategy right now as it stands. So I'm just kind of low key on that. But that I'm not saying that'll never change, because I'm constantly fluid.
and any upcoming tool or service that has caught your eye attention recently, other than good?
Oh, oh man, I just I looked at that and I thought, I can never remember them. It's I think, oh yeah, there was one the other day somebody's mentioning. Oh, there was this other one. I'm kind of always behind the eight ball on that. I kind of am a latecomer. Everybody's all excited. Then about 3-4 months later, I get into it. Oh yeah, this is pretty cool. So maybe 3-4 months down the road, I can tell you what everybody was talking about now and say, yeah, this is the new one for me.
So no upcoming tool for you.
No, nothing that I can think of. I felt really embarrassed. I thought, oh, I don't have an answer. Oh no, I failed.
It seems that you don't hang around on Facebook groups.
I do, but I'm on Twitter more. Facebook groups kind of, I get to, that's another whole story. But anyway, yeah, I don't hang around a lot on Facebook groups.
But guess what? Facebook can be a good source for a lot of eyeballs and
Yeah.
even business, actually. I get 99% of my business from Facebook, to be honest.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Wow. Yeah, I read, I look, and I kind of, I don't want it, trolling isn't the right word, but I roam around in there and I watch things and stuff and listen and read, but I don't participate quite as much. But yeah, I pick up, but like I said, I can never remember one tool from the next because it seems like people are always throwing them at me left and right.
Okay, man, cool. So one question did miss in, like, how much content to produce? Like, how many posts do you publish in a week on a specific website or total in all of your website?
You know, I for my main site, I was doing. I've done every day for a while. You know, I mean, I was doing 7 days a week. Back, I don't know when that was. I didn't sit there and go out and tell everybody I'm a daily blogger because I knew it wasn't going to last. I was more of a test. I went down to 5, and right now I'm down to about 3 because I've got the podcast. I've got so much different content, so I do about at least a guarantee of 3 to 4, probably 4 posts on one site, and the other sites are very random. I try to keep them at least one a week. You know, I think it's just consistency. There's so much content out there. I don't think there's any golden rule anymore. If you can just kind of keep some kind of a consistent
Yeah.
basis on there, you know, just do it, but don't make it a headache for yourself.
Yeah, even if you want to do just one post per week, just make sure you're consistent at that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Bob, before we wrap this episode, where can people find you? I'm sure you can list all your websites now.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I have four. So I have bobwpmedia.com, which is kind of my catch-all, bobwp.com, which is my WooCommerce focus site, and that has the Do the Woo podcast on it. Then I have wpdigitalshop.com, which has some content and is a new podcast. And then I have WP e-commerce show, which is only the podcast. So those are the 4. And then I always, as my business card says, and I don't mean this to sound cocky or anything, but it says just Google Bob WP. So if you're looking for me, you know, type in Bob WP in Google and you'll usually find me somewhere.
Awesome. It was amazing talking to you. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.